Welcome, Mr. Gustafsson.
Thank you so much.
We are talking right after your rehearsal, and it's kind of mini concert. You're always approaching another venues this way because it's very professional. You need to know every single shade, every single moment in the material.
Well, some days we have very short sound checks. Some days we like to play a bit and maybe explore different angles to the material, or maybe try a new piece that we haven't done before. So, and today it was very inspiring, so we felt like playing, so now we just had to stop to save the rest of the energy.
A couple of years you performed with your ensemble, trio, quartet, quintet, and it's really strange, and I'm wondering, how do you merge all those different shapes of the ensemble, different styles in it, different atmosphere in every single score, so you wipe all the borders in between.
Yeah, I guess for me it's not really about trying to play a style, it's about trying to express here and now in the moment what feels authentic and right and in a way true, the music, and then many different kinds of inspirations or different traditions that I've listened to or interacted with come into the universe of this ensemble in different ways, but it's always about trying to go for this one core, in a way, to find the place of silent minimalism and go from there and see what feels right every day. And then throughout the years with the different forms of the ensemble, for trio and quartet and quintet, it has been a very strong feeling in me that the core of the band is always the same. The repertoire stretches a bit differently with the different formations, and we keep adding new pieces, but in a way the main message and also a lot of the repertoire is like as a core stream of music that goes throughout all the different variations of the ensemble.
You're not just simply a musician, performer, composer. You hold a PhD degree in musicology. Actually, your thesis is about phenomenology, psychology of music, of improvisation. It's very interesting. I wonder, why do you start to research in music? To describe your music to the audience, or to improve your playing, actually?
That's a very good question. Definitely not to describe the music to the audience. That has not so much to do with it. I think the main thing is that I have always played the piano. That's the very central part of my identity and my daily life, but I didn't think that I would do music as a career or as a profession. So after school, I was very interested in sociology and psychology and the science of religion. So I did some years at the university studying things like this. And then I noticed that I have to do music full time, at least for a while, because music took up more and more part of my daily life, and I started forming bands and rehearsing. So then I did music conservatory also as an education. But after that, when I started working professionally, I still felt that a big part of me likes to read and write and to engage in theory. And then I felt that there was a potential bridge or connection between some of the theory I've read in psychology and the experiences I had as a musician. And especially this about the paradoxes between closeness and distance, of the paradox between
5 groups of antonyms.
Exactly, yeah. And this came from a theory of relationship and development of the self in infants and in adults and in relationships. And I felt that this particular psychological theory could really shed light on a set of parallel challenges when doing musical improvisation. So that was like my intuition or the starting point of this thesis. And then I studied the paradoxes of musical improvisation in the light of psychological theory, dealing with these things of dealing with paradoxes in relationships.
It's not Hegelian way of dialectics, but you merge different approaches here.
Yeah.
It's a long story.
It's a very long story, but the Hegelian concept of thesis, antithesis, and synthesis is all the time very important, because it's so easy to get stuck either on one side of a dilemma or in a boring middle of the road thing. But when you play, you don't need half this and half that, you need both. You need to be completely immersed in the moment, but also completely having an overview of the music and seeing it a bit from the outside. And you need to be inside every moment and also have a full understanding of the music over time and actually remember the whole concert at every given moment and still be inside that moment. So if you are stuck in like the middle of the road, then that's the worst kind of handling of a dilemma.
Not here, not there.
Exactly. But if you are able to be both sides and to make a synthesis, then magic can happen.
Maybe I'm wrong, but this is my impression of your music. Like here, you appreciate the music, and the church music is very familiar to you, and folk music, and you are afraid to break the silence. You appreciate the silence more than the sound itself. So tell us something about that.
Yeah. This all comes from, well, first of all, it comes from me being a person I'm nourished from meditation and from silent prayer in church, and this whole bringing together in our time of spiritual impulses from all different religion in a kind of open-minded Christianity that is very important to me. A kind of Christianity that is totally open for the experiences in Tantra, in yoga, in Sufism.
That's why you were so stubborn to have your premiere of your mass in the middle of Germany, and that kind of mass. I adore
exactly, that's true. So that's one part of it. That this sacred wanting to approach a silent, sacred shrine in a way in the middle of the storm. That's both in my spiritual life, in my personal life, and in my musical life a big thing. And then when I started playing with Jarle Vespestad, the drummer in my trio, many years ago, we had this feeling already on our second rehearsal, this almost physical sensation of, wow, in this tune, the less we play, the more we say, in a way,
The less is more.
the stronger it feels. And we kind of, ever since then, we have cultivated this together. And that doesn't mean that we always play minimalistically. Sometimes we go quite loud, sometimes we go into advanced, multi-layered things, but we always come from this point of not saying more than is necessary and reducing until, in a way, the string vibrates on this essentialism. And that was a very formative experience for me and for the two of us playing together, and it has been formative for the way we have played together ever since.
I can hear modus in your classical system of tonality. I can hear makams inside everything, and I don't know if you are knitting a sweater sometimes, like in terms of Bach, or you are shading the scenery of one Debussy. We can see that you know the music, different styles, but was it hard to find your own voice when you have in front of you one Jan Garbarek, Molvær? You're coming Greek from the same country. It's not easy, or is it disadvantage or advantage?
That's a very good question. At least 2 or 3 sections of the answer has to be made, but basically when I use tools or elements of different styles, like you said, Debussy, the Impressionist composers, or Bach type polyphony, or Norwegian folk type scales, or makams, it's never done like it's never done intentionally as now I will try this. It's always something that I always come from playing just a very simple melody, and then it's filtered through my system, all these things that I've listened to over the years, and hopefully they come out in a good way and not an artificial way. But it's, in a way, I wouldn't say it's beyond my control, but it's definitely not intentional, this using of different stylistic elements. And I think the main thing in finding your own voice is trying to be authentic, trying to go with the music to a point where you feel the music is saying something that is deeper than words can say, or is more sacred than when you don't play. And for me personally, that happened a lot after my conservatory training, when I found a way of energetic and also theoretic or technical way of bridging my early childhood experiences in music with the multi-layered polytonal impressionist way of making colors. So my childhood experiences were first and foremost church music, spirituals, African American spirituals and Lutheran hymns, and also lullabies from Scandinavian folk music traditions, and basically very nourishing, good melodies, often quite simple but always also subtle, and basic chord progressions from gospel music that I had been playing in the church choir when I was little. When these things came together with the openness for space and multi-layeredness in the music, that's, I think, when, in a way, I found a universe that was more me, more unique than the conservatory training could do. So it's about stretching out and upwards, but doing it standing on firm ground and including the very basic early childhood experiences and the security and the warmth, in a way, both psychological and musically, the warmth that comes from these sources.
You're always grounded, because a lot of musicians trying to find their own style on the way they lose a melody. You're very your music is always with a melody, because as I saw, you enjoy when you're together on the scene with the good voice. You have concerts like New Year's concert one, and I think on the top of your priorities is always a melody.
Yeah, a lyrical presence in the music. The melody can be long with words, or it can be just a very small motive, like a lullaby or a humming motive. But you're right that one of those two are always in the center of my presence in the music.
I see that people wants to comment that we lost the music and there is a crisis in the music, or this or that. But do you see a bigger difference between let's talk about jazz, about American jazz and European jazz? Because for me, it's European jazz is dominant nowadays in terms of revolutionary things and new ideas. And what do you think about that in general?
Well, first of all, it's extremely important that I cherish and appreciate and have huge gratitude towards American jazz history, especially the early phases of the blues and the New Orleans jazz, picking up Creole. And I also like several things going on today in American contemporary jazz. But having said that, I agree with you. I find the combination of rootedness in different folk music cultures, combined with a kind of jazz sensibility, producing stronger results and more touching results more often in Europe. That's how I feel also. Yeah.
And one has to have courage to deal with Bach. You were brave enough, but you are not dealing with Bach like Jacques Louisier, play Bach 3 or something.
No.
You have to have an effort to recognize Bach in a structure and from time to time in the melody. But would you?
Yeah, this happened by itself in a way. I never planned it, and I think that's why it worked. Because to do a Bach in a jazz way project is most likely going to end up like a bit cheesy. And it's definitely, we don't need to improve Bach. Of course we don't. It's one of the most complete composers there ever was. But I had done a project with a choir and a fiddle player in Norway where we improvised on Bach chorales. And when we had a rehearsal in the trio, I just got the impulse and started playing one of the chorales, and the others immediately followed with something, and so it just came from a very spontaneous hey, this is a good melody kind of approach. And for me that's the best approach. And then it turned out that this latest album had 3 Bach chorales in it, and again, not that we set out to do it as a project, it just happened in a way.
You will play the material from the last CD for ECM. We are celebrating this company. What would you say? Is ECM something more than a house that support artists, that they are not conventional? And let's talk about that way of approaching, because everybody will say, okay, music is business today, but you can have an image too.
Yeah, well, most of the time music is really not a business today, because the business is so in crisis that, yeah. So if you got into it in order to earn money, it's really time to get out. Yeah. But no, ECM is a unique label, I find, in in the history it has, in the catalog it has developed, and in the approach of a radical listening in a way, a listening for the smaller nuances, a listening for what is between the lines in a way, and through that approach they have produced many of the most fantastic contemporary music recordings of the last decades, and definitely many of the most fantastic jazz recordings, and I'm really grateful to be a part of that history. And it's important also that people know how diverse the catalog is. Sometimes it's almost portrayed as a cliche of everything being with lots of reverb and everything being very meditative in a pre-programmed way. But if you actually sit down and listen, it's such a rich catalog of different colors, different instruments, different approaches, all coming within this radical listening concept, but still turning out very differently.
And Skopje Jazz Festival is unique because, you know, our country is very small geographically and economy is poor, but we are like all other countries in the world when we're talking about the jazz. And do you, when you play, do you know where are you playing, to know something about the country, or every audience is the same one to you?
No, I'm mostly very conscious about where I am, but I find often that the differences between audiences within one country can be much bigger than the differences between countries. And it has much more to do with the kind of hall you play, the kind of piano, and the vibe of that particular audience. I always try to learn something about the place where I am, and here, especially because my Jarle, the drummer in our trio, he has played a lot of Bulgarian music, and also that band had quite some Macedonian themes also in there. So he played with Bulgarians, and he's really into those really complex rhythms and the ornamentations. And that, when we were waiting in the airport, there was a band behind us in the line today, and they were just singing some of their songs with the ornamentations, and I was immediately saying, oh yeah, we're going somewhere cool now. And it was like a boy band from Macedonia that had a concert in Germany, I think, and it was immediately this very cool feeling.
Great. And at the end, I would ask you, can you tell us about next plans? I'm talking about music. What can we expect from you? We heard church music, every single scale, different atmospheres. You always merge different nature of instruments. You even tonight with electronics and acoustics, and it's very hard, we know, to give that compact sound picture, panorama. So, what to expect?
Well, what to expect after this, I really don't know. But what I do know is that the processes that are going on with the trio now feel very meaningful and fruitful, and we are developing it all the time. So it's very natural to think that at some point we will record more trio material, because I'm writing that. But also the formation on my previous album with the Afghan-German singer Simin Tander. We have kept also doing concerts with that and developing that, so that will also probably happen more. And then I have done solo concerts. In the last couple of years I finally felt that I could do that that's the most difficult one.
Yeah, of course.
And
on your own.
Yeah, so that might also happen one day. We will see.
You are now a mature musician. So I'll ask you the last one. When are you going to say, I'm happy, I'm satisfied, I reached the goals in a life? Or
I don't know any musicians that say it like that. But the goal is to be in the music in such a way that I could say now this is I'm grateful. I have done my best at any given moment. And for me, it's not like I have this goal to play with this or that musician or go here or there to play. I play with the best people I know, so I have no dreams of playing with anyone else, and I have been everywhere. So my dream is to just keep doing this with freshness, not necessarily playing a bigger hall or with different musicians, but to keep the freshness. And as long as it feels real and fresh, then I would hope that I can keep playing, and we'll see.
Keep away from the routine.
Yeah, ritual, but not routine.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Likewise, real pleasure.